Like true Umbrella scientists, Namsku and the Biorand team's experimentation had finally created the ultimate lifeform. With the RE2 Remake Randomiser at the click of a button, we could now convert what was a classic zombie experience into a literal Doom game. With the ability to now spawn any enemy anywhere, swap out all the doors in the game for different ones, and shuffle every item to a random location somewhere on the map, RE2 permadeath randomizer runs had an average completion time of anywhere between 4 hours to 2 days, depending on what kind of serial killer item placement you got. So then, was it madness to suggest that we could get that time all the way down to just 2 hours and achieve a Randomiser S+ rank in the process? The beginning of this randomizer nightmare starts with the creation of a seed, from which we use 7 Ray D's balanced Claire B profile as our template. To ensure that this experience was cursed from the get-go, we rolled the Wheel of Misfortune to give us a random number, which we used to generate Ray's profile 12 times, ensuring we stepped into the complete unknown. When it came to rules, we'd be following the standard randomizer permadeath framework, but with 2 additional changes. The first was the introduction of a mod that would remove the area restrictions from the game, so randomized enemies, instead of being contained to their designated areas, would be free to pursue us throughout the RPD. And let me tell you, when they say there's nowhere to hide, they really do mean it. The second is that with a classic S+ rank playthrough, you're entitled to free saves, but with this being permadeath, these saves were obsolete. So in the place of free saves, I decided that for today's challenge we would instead get just 3 attempts to try and get that coveted S+ rank. If we died on any attempt, it'd be marked down as a DNF, forcing us to abandon our progress and start the next attempt all over again. Which, considering attempt 1 would be my first ever playthrough of this seed without enough progress, any remaining attempts would be left at a severe disadvantage when it came to enemy and item locations. The luxury of time was what randomizers thrived off, but now with only 2 hours, I had wondered, just how random could random be? September 30th, 1998, and Claire Redfield, best known for her role as sister to legendary geologist Chris Redfield, had arrived outside the RPD to begin her first day as the newest member of STARS. Holding absolutely zero experience for this role, this was a nepotism hire, plain and simple, but some very immediate and far-reaching vacancies from within the STARS office meant that Chris was getting a pretty nice kickback from the referral. Opening our freshly randomized starting inventory, it was less than half of what we'd hoped for, but as Claire entered the RPD's grounds in search of her induction, the open graves and assorted dead bodies would be only the second weirdest thing that she'd encounter in the opening 10 seconds of this challenge, because today, it turns out, was the worst day to be the newest member of STARS.
Seriously?
In what would go down in history as the Oxford Dictionary definition of wrong place, wrong time, Biorand seemed out of control. As Michael Caine would say, it was only supposed to randomise the bloody doors off, but our seed appeared to be changing more than just our enemies and items.
Whatever you're seeing, it's not real, man, okay?
Sadly, with no Brad Vickers to serve up in our place, our only option was to press forward, which sadly meant first pressing backwards to the guard room, which in true bullshit rando fashion had been randomised to another door with chains. With an inventory pouch found hiding in this corner and the stone arm collected from inside this drawer, we're quickly thrown out of said room as we fight our way back up to the RPD to truly begin this randomizer nightmare. Now, I pride myself on being quite a good gambler, and I'll prove it now as we immediately lose our first 50-50, turning right and up the stairwell, not realising that the second floor's east hallway door had been randomised to a heart door, a door to which I did not have the key for. Oh. Now stuck between Umbrella's Terminator and the Undead, whilst we'd secured another inventory pouch from the fire escape, we were hemorrhaging health, and with the Nowhere to Hide mod pouring enemies out after us, we were on the precipice of an early exit out of attempt 1. Composing ourselves after crashing our health stores, we snatched the club key from the top of the reception desk as we bundle through the east office in search of something useful. With nothing of interest found, whilst dodging a Nemesis Windmill Haymaker combo in the press office, something had caught my eye. The Unicorn Medallion was an exceptionally good start, if you discount the current leather-bound problems that we had. With nowhere else to go, the break room hallway remains our only avenue of progression, where within the basement we find a plethora of items hiding. A knife, the jewelry box, the high-capacity mag for the MQ-11, and the detonator, whilst in the break room itself we find the fuse which would allow us to open the shutters into the RPD's main hall. Fucking Christ! Apparently, having taken over from Heisenberg as the one who knocks in a reversal of fortunes whilst being able to punch the door off its hinges, Nemesis, like some kind of BDSM vampire, couldn't actually walk through it unless invited in, which we sure as shit weren't going to do. With yet another precious health item consumed, we slip a grenade out the doorway to drop Nemesis and his crew and buy us the time we needed to make it out to the main hall. On our way through, we check the toilets for any glory holes, but instead find the jack handle, which would be used to satiate any handle jacking needs. I immediately regretted my choice to check out the downstairs storage cupboard, as on the way out, Nemesis punches me into a zombie, a move that would be considered by most courts of law in the UK as illegal, and one that forces us to burn a precious knife to prevent instant death. Staggering into the RPD's main hall, the welcome party was growing, but it was the dogs here that were the biggest concern. Being top of the Raccoon City terrorist watch list, these things could stunlock you to death and were not recommended to be left alone around young children. But with them gone, we could now conduct a quick review around the RPD's hall to get a flavour for the landscape. Library locked, East Wing greeting room locked, West office also locked, which just left the claustrophobic Southwest hallway as our only option. Who knew what horrors lurked down that corridor, but one thing was for sure, we didn't need this walking bleached arsehole following us down there. With our relationship status changed temporarily to single, we find the battery for the detonator inside this chair, a liquor on the roof, and another inventory pouch at the end of the hallway. Finding this much inventory space this early on in a permadeath randomizer run was like Anakin finding another untouched cubicle of younglings. It was going to make my life a lot easier going forward. Entering the briefing room, we find the evidence locker keycard along with our first red-coded message. Now, what Namsku has also done is completely randomize all the codes in the game as well. So whereas the vanilla unicorn statue's code is usually this, in the randomizer it could be anything, meaning we'd need to find the corresponding note if we wanted to gain access to its locked contents. In the interest of fairness for attempts 2 and 3, even if we know the code, we'd still need to grab the corresponding note before we'd be allowed to open it. Anyways, next up was West Wing, which was like Planet of the Apes in here, but it's just dogs. With Raccoon City's canine epidemic continuing to flood the corridors of the RPD, the approaching sound of footsteps and leather, whilst slightly arousing, was also concerning. A grenade quickly buys us some security in what was to be a key corridor going forward as we make it into the dark room. Pervert! I have no idea what they're talking about. With the shotgun's extended barrel banks and our inventory cleaned up, as we went to leave, it became readily apparent that this safe room was in fact more of just a room. Somehow defying the laws of physics to exit out of the not-so-safe safe room without being pummeled, it was all hands on deck as we continued to search for clues on the whereabouts of the final 2 medallions. With yet another inventory pouch secured on the stairs, giving us a massive 16 slots to work with, the dogs were continuing to steal items out of those slots like the gremlins they were.
7 Ray D's bullshit randomizer.
Despite being a dog lover, I was almost instantly nearing my patience limit here, and with Raccoon City's mouth-breathing Discord moderator closing in, the 3rd floor needed to deliver, which it did. Having found the red valve handle for the shower room next door to the shower room, we'd also lost Nemesis, who clearly found something better to do, leaving us in peace to find the diamond key outside the library, as well as... And just like that... Now, within touching distance of a full set of RPD Exodia inside the library, the randomizer had also randomized the library ladder away to an unknown location, which Nemesis didn't quite seem to understand. Wondering more intensely than ever whether we'd get the answer to who let the dogs out, with 12 zombies in the library, or if we're going by their physical values, 6 zombies, we lower the bookcases and quickly bridge the gap between the wings of the 3rd floors. Collecting the muzzle brake from the Matilda from this table and a white gunpowder from the unicorn statue, we entered the STARS office with the kind of uncontainable excitement that a child would have had at Christmas, wondering what game-changing weaponry we'd find to help us blast our way out of the RPD. Yeah, my disappointment is immeasurable and my day is literally ruined. With only a first aid spray in Wesker's secret masturbating drawer and a weird picture of, I don't know whoever this is, the STARS office was rivaling State of Play in levels of disappointment. And yeah, sure, we've had one nemesis, yeah. But what about second nemesis? Oh, fuck! With both those guys probably reaching mutual climax from being in the literal STARS office, we continue to find items that were in the tier below useless as we use the diamond key to unlock the evidence locker room in the hope that its contents could bring us something of value. Which was a yes and no answer. Yes, we had found a key item, but no, this wasn't helpful, as the RNG had locked the cog behind door 203, the one locker that required both functioning keypads. Classic. But despite this revelation adding to our list of future problems, amongst the deplorables in the West Wing office, we get our big break, putting us back in the driving seat. With both pursuers lost upstairs, probably still sniffing Jill's seat in the STARS office, we use this moment to walk back through the liquor hallway and open up the secret underground safe room. Having collected a relatively diverse arsenal, moving down into the machinery room, we get another lifeline in the shape of one of the missing keypads, putting us 50% of the way to collecting that large cog. As we try to move this locker and clear the path up ahead, we see something move from inside the control room. Presumably, having escaped from a nylon video, the randomizer had somehow thrown a wild anime child into my game.
Excuse me? Are you British?
Yeah. Why?
Oh no. Oh no.
With the randomizer continuing to erode the very fabric of this scenario, and with the language this strange anime child was speaking being incompatible with our ears, before we could just back up slowly and find another way around. As Claire secured a 1 out of 10 landing, whilst it was refreshing to fight someone without a STARS-based speech impediment, our first official boss fight wasn't immune from the effects of the randomizer. Joined by several zombies in G1's arena, they helped to make my particularly sloppy performance here far more tense than it needed to be. With a couple of second-hand knives accelerating my departure from this death trap, we collect the remaining items from the area and make our way up towards the basement car park.
Damn it.
Where did you crawl out from? Surprised that the added physical strength of a 5-year-old didn't help in lifting the shutters, we were stuck. But being in America, the home of the land and the free of the brave, we ask a passerby for some help.
On the ground, hands behind your head.
Great. Just great. Our would-be robber turns out to be none other than Resident Evil femboy and manager of the police station, Chief Irons, who apart from being a massive gooner, was a huge fan of the Spy X Family manga. With cries of unintelligible anime distress echoing out into the dead city, our biggest issue with this situation was that the ramp clearly says no sherry.
You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
After calming down, whilst we were now anime-less, I did feel kind of bad. That guy was built like a straight-up sex offender, so it felt irresponsible to leave her behind. Against my better judgment, the next phase of this fever dream plotline I'd written had now begun. If we wanted to follow them both, we'd need to collect 2 electrical components from somewhere inside the RPD to access Chief Irons' weirdly excessive parking ticket collection. Currently, we had no idea where either of the electrical components were, so it was time to revisit the RPD. Heading upstairs in the lift to the designated cuck office, we were immediately jumped on our way out the door by this fuckboy zombie, which, I've got to say, happens way too often in this challenge. Whilst the east stairway provided no leads on either of the components, we did find the Holy Grail outside the interview room. Finally, a weapon, and a pretty good one at that. Holy! The red book may as well have been Liz Truss's autobiography. It was worthless and shit. But over in the backyard behind the helicopter crash site, we had better luck, finding the square crank which we could use to open up these 2 shutters, as well as the heart key which expanded our search options as we returned to the RPD. Despite ignoring my inner voice that said no, don't do it, I extinguished the helicopter fire and prepared myself for the introduction of an additional 4th nemesis into the bedroom. But it turned out this guy was chill and just hit a dab before going completely comatose. Now with access to the connecting east hallway, things were starting to snowball. Tucked in next to the closed shutter was unbelievably one of the electrical components that we needed, and by using the square crank we could open up that corridor to create an easy loop back to the safe room. The waiting room was a blowout, and actually so was the remainder of the RPD. With literally nothing of value identified, the only area left to explore on the map was the kennels and the morgue down in the basement. The shooting range had nothing but live target practice and a one-armed Marvin, and the kennels were teeming with dogs and lickers, quite possibly the worst combination ever created. After working our way through the kennels, the morgue had some questionable occupants. But still, we'd not found anything to progress the story. I was growing increasingly concerned that we'd missed something. These items we needed were so small that they could literally be anywhere, and backtracking through Nemesis RPD Town was just asking for trouble. But upon leaving the morgue, our luck was about to change. Now armed with all 4 precinct keys and both keypads, the RPD was now an open book. The problem was that the only people who knew how to read around here only knew one word. I'm in trouble! On the run again, the RPD was now suffering from what I like to call double trouble. Oh my god! And with new enemies spawning in thanks to the RPD refresh, it made previously safe areas less safe. Oh my god! With both Nemesises competing with each other to see who could put their fist up my arsehole first, we make a break for the evidence lockup. But with our shortcut through the East Wing's office blocks, we had to take the long way around, which, after discovering that the maiden statue was a waste of time, this little maneuver had cost us health, patience, and 6 minutes. 6 minutes that we couldn't afford. Hemorrhaging healing items and patience in equal parts, we find the sewer key in the shower locker and arrive in the dark room to quickly grab the keypad buttons, but sadly, we'd not been quick enough. Oh, you have got to be kidding me, man. Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Ladies, don't settle for a man who's not as passionate and committed to you as Nemesis is for finding stars. The fight inside here was quite overstimulating, but with both pursuers now taking 5, a quick walk down the hall gets us into the remaining lockers as we finally started making progress. Oh my god! With the children now awake and hot on our heels again, we opt to take the risky shortcut through the West office, where an unstoppable force meets an immovable challenge runner who refuses to accept this absolute pile of bullshit. Luckily, moments before blowing a blood vessel, we get an unlikely assist as Nemesis punches us through the G-adult, allowing us to regroup at the underground safe room. Composing ourselves, our new friends were waiting patiently for us to come out and play, but by slipping out at the opportune moment, we could race to the 3rd floor clock tower, hoping and praying that we'd lose both our friends before we reached it. With both cogs in place, the 2nd electrical unit was thankfully in its default position, meaning we now had everything we needed to make it to the orphanage. But remember what a wise man once said: a nemesis is the righteous infliction of retribution manifested by an appropriate agent, personified in this case by a horrible cunt. Which, on this occasion, is this guy. For fuck's sake. Blowing out of the clock tower at Mac Claire speeds, Operation Cleanup was now in full effect. With our pockets full of everything of value and the trash left behind, a momentary lapse in remembering where I'd left my Nemesis triplets nearly ended in disaster. Oh my god! With the run rescued, we were now fully stocked up, and with a final run over to Irons' office, the phone mysteriously rings out.
Hello?
Whoever keeps ringing this number screaming down the phone, you will learn what it means to insult House Dumitresque! You stupid man thing!
What are you talking about?
Are you kidding?
Abusive calls from the Vampire MILF hotline weren't exactly unwanted, but the edging would have to wait. Not because I didn't want to, but because Nemesis had found me in the taxidermy room. Once free, Nemesis wasn't quite ready to let us go, like ever. So says his emotional goodbyes at the door as we open the shutters down in basement parking. They say true love always finds a way, and somehow Nemesis had found a way to invade our personal space once again. Drawing out the zombies from Kendo's side gate, we head through one of Raccoon City's top 10 dogging spots in search of the orphanage, which, I gotta tell you, was kinda rancid. Lickers are always a terrible addition to any area where you have dogs, but luckily this was an environment that grenades thrived in. With the G-adult and the dog shot from behind the safety of this fence, the next liquor was violently melted away, and with another quick grenade thrown inside local public transport, we can arrive at the most beautiful rebrand in all of gaming history. Inside the home of the real monsters, Irons had apparently been told that it was his body, Birkin's choice. Now covered in Irons' DNA, we headed down into the sewers, and there we found the little girl from earlier. Our apologies for leaving the anime child with Raccoon City's 2x Orphanage of the Year winner had fallen on deaf ears, as she full sends it in the opposite direction. What's her problem? Disappointed that Nemesis didn't have the balls to punch a literal child in the face, a line had formed for possession of this little anime girl as Birkin cripples Nemesis and Rugby tackles the lift. Waking up to a medical flashbang, qualified science person and randomizer expert Annette offers us an explanation in these trying times. Oh, this should be good. If Annette is to be believed, following the disappearance of their beloved child, her and her husband had used Umbrella's vast resources to traverse the multiverse in the hope that they could reunite their family once again, without the need to abuse an entire town in VR. At that exact moment, however, Biorand's modification of the game files had torn open Annette's controlled hole in the multiverse, explaining the other franchise variants that had been bleeding through into this timeline. Due to the sheer amount of copyright infringement that was taking place here, our universe was now on the verge of collapse. Our only chance to save our timeline was to complete the randomizer as quickly as possible before verifying the integrity of the game's files, which should, in theory, forcibly send these variants home. I have no idea how this story's ended up here, but quite frankly, I'm in too deep at this point. Anyways, arriving at the sewers, there was a chance for anything to be down here, but so far, so good. With the T-crank collected, we even immediately find what we were looking for inside this bin.
Access denied. Password required to open door.
To actually open this dumpster, we'd need to track down 3 electronic plugs located somewhere in the game. But perhaps the most concerning part was that I'd not found a single one in the RPD or the surrounding area, meaning they were either here inside the sewer or somewhere lost inside the halls of the crippled RPD. With the sewer safe a bust, we hit the lower causeway, taking out more dogs and finding the T-handled lock in a different location. Attempting to apply some kind of IQ to this deranged mess, we head into the King and Queen plug room first. If for whatever reason they were in their vanilla locations, fantastic. If they weren't, then we could quickly move into having a full mental breakdown. Working through the G Adults maternity ward, everything was going well, until... Now, I haven't received explosive diarrhea to the face in this game for a long time, and I'd forgotten just how absolutely cancerous it was. Without a blue herb, between Claire having a full-blown seizure every 2 minutes and refusing to aim or shoot, we were one aggressive cough in the face from collapsing on the floor. With health diminishing with every second that went by, without a blue herb, the world was getting darker around us, but inside the supply room we're offered something more valuable than life itself. Beautiful. Safely plugged into their original 2 spots were the King and Queen plugs, a result that we couldn't have ever hoped for. With the contents of the storage room eliminated and the plugs inserted into a safe place, the slight downer was that weaponry continued to elude us. The first aid spray in its place did give us a small safety buffer on the return trip, but another costly trip back to the save room to eat a blue herb meant that we were bleeding time. Now, at least without being infected with Ebola, we just had the Rook plug to go, with our search continuing en route up to the lower waterway overpass. More feral dogs and an overgrown marijuana plant later, and we'd collected everything we possibly could, but still no Rook plug. The randomizer had even gone so far as to just move the entire wall unit, presumably to somewhere down here. We make what was in hindsight a very costly trip back to the surface to deleverage our inventory and make one final pass through the RPD, unlocking the final locker on the West Wing stairwell before heading back to the final sewer area. Awkwardly trying to force my way out of this door, my feelings of concern were soon swapped to elation as there she was, waiting for me downstairs on this wall, as beautiful as she was the day we left her. With first aid spray stocks on a bull run, supplies were in a healthy place as we moved in to open the garbage disposal area. As we completed the puzzle and restored power to the area, the one question in my mind that had been ringing out for the past 20 minutes was, where the fuck are all the weapons? I feel like I'd been ghosted. These weapons were nowhere to be seen, particularly in my hour of need, as Birkin tore a hole in the roof. Apparently also looking for the anime child, we were all that stood between him and her massive glowing lidless eyes. Sitting here to avoid being sliced to ribbons, this boss fight has got to be up there as one of the worst at the best of times, but on a permadeath randomizer run, it was particularly shit. Whilst we did have good stockpiles of pretty much everything, Birkin and myself traded blows, resulting in me very nearly throwing the entire run at the 11th hour. In post-production, I can play this off as a masterful move, but in reality, with the child retrieved, she wasn't saying a word, which personally was a relief, but from a professional yapper such as herself, this was a clear sign that something wasn't right. Our only hope was that we could get her to Annette, who might know what to do. Taking her back to the tram, the Lickers didn't seem to care that I was carrying a sick and potentially disabled child. But once through and with her deposited, we made one final and potentially desperate check of the map, hoping that we may have just missed something. But nothing revealed itself, meaning it was time to head down into the final section of the game. With communication at an all-time low, arriving at the lab where such classics such as the G-virus and genital herpes had been created, we drop our glowing baggage off at reception. Outside the lab, we find the signal modulator sitting on this barrel and, oh my fucking god, I swear, one more weapon upgrade and I'm going to inject myself with the G-virus. Inside the restaurant, with food potentially contaminated with dissolved dog and liquor meat, we find, surprise, more dogs, but with the keycard upgraded, we find... On the brink of having a weapon attachment-induced breakdown en route over to the greenhouse, handgun ammo just seemed to be flowing like wine, an insult no doubt to me and the shotgun-sized hole this rando had left in my heart. Passing the zombie Lisan Al-Gaib, the greenhouse brings a presence I had not felt for a long time. With Nemesis nowhere to be seen, he was somewhere out there. We just wondered where he might surprise us. Jesus fucking Christ. With a nice additional inventory pouch found and more animal cruelty laws breached, now comes a moment that can only be described as regret in its purest form. There is a setting in the randomizer called hard pins, which came with a warning that if activated, I would regret it. The warning signs had literally been there, but I questioned at the time just how hard could hard be. Well... The code to access B2 and the chemical dispersal room had been removed from underneath this statue and had been replaced with a mathematical equation that I could only assume could cure cancer if solved. Still, whilst I wasn't exactly talented in the numbers department, I'm sure I could do this. Remember, at the end of the day, this was just numbers. So with my limited edition Hello Kitty calculator in hand, we began the process of mathing. Without a hint of doubt in my mind, I would not have been able to solve this in 1,000 years, let alone 2 hours. So after humbling myself to the Biorand Discord, who clearly and rightfully thought I was an idiot, the crew came through. Not to be overdramatic, but you three truly saved a life that day. Now probably on track for an F rank, which is coincidentally the same grade that I got in maths, we could finally fill up the dispersal cartridge before heading down to B2 to cool it, and it was here that my prayers were finally answered. Where were you 2 hours ago? The troll level of this seed was off the charts, but finally with additional firepower, it was surely only up from here. With the G Adults weekly meeting interrupted, we restore power to the rest of B2's floor and find, oh my fucking god. With weaponry continuing on the up and up, the Lickers were napalmed, the liquid cooled, and one final additional inventory pouch found. En route up to the greenhouse control room, the dispersal cartridge thankfully was strong enough to dissolve the nemesis floating above us like the second coming of Christ, meaning with the upgraded level 3 wristband, we were now entering the home stretch. With a liquor desecrating the sanctity of our save room of horrors, we help ourselves to a little vial of chilled Gamer Girl bathwater, and with our inventory organised, we prepped for war. With the bombshell revelation that Annette was apparently banging this guy, she fires rocket-propelled divorce papers at Birkin, but unfortunately for her, William had an absolutely bulletproof prenup because, remember,
She is my creation!
with Annette's internal organs now looking like a Mortal Kombat finisher, it was up to us to push through a manual divorce on her behalf. With zombies in the arena, they could have made the fight slightly awkward, had I not immediately ripped a flash into the sky, burning their dead retinas out like we were in Land of the Dead. Clearing out our unwanted guests, we delivered damage to G3 via Prime same-day delivery, with the MQ-11 poking him in the eyes twice and the flamethrower making his body look like grilled chicken. With another boss down, a potential podium finish for Attempt 1 was a real possibility. With Annette reprogramming the anime girl, she was back awake, but apparently with a few changes. Annette finally succumbs to the delayed fatality as the multiversal wormhole began to collapse around us, and running to the emergency lift, we wondered, what did Annette mean by changes?
Stop being a bitch and come on!
Despite him being potentially moments away from disintegration, Nemesis truly was the epitome of never don't give up on your dreams, and whilst I'd given up on my dreams, they unexpectedly came true, even though I kinda wish they didn't. Here of all places. According to the config file, there were 272 potential spawn points in this randomizer, meaning it had somehow managed to ignore 270 other ones to place it in the absolute last one of the entire game. As we sent the child over to open the door, I hadn't really counted on Nemesis ground pounding down to my level in a 4-story superhero landing. I'd been quite looking forward to just molding in peace. With the anime girl asked to politely hurry the fuck up, we burst through the door, get one last liquor-shaped gash in our forehead for old time's sake, before beginning preparation for our exit out of here. With the holy shotgun of justice finally constructed, it would go on to just sit inside my inventory, as the minigun would do most of the work for G8, or whatever number we were on now. With the penultimate boss dispatched with minimal time wastage, our universe had begun to stabilize, and as the tram sped towards the surface, the variant characters had begun to return to their own franchises. Apparently, just not quite yet. With multiversal recovery still on cooldown, one character refused to let go of this universe. With Birkin having more comebacks than an OnlyFans page, we could finally release the most satisfying moment of the challenge. With space quickly becoming a luxury just as I was preparing to hang my head in shame at failing 2 seconds away from the results screen. Thank God. And with the multiverse officially saved, the final characters returned to their franchises, including the anime girl who, after all we'd been through, vanished with a heartbreaking goodbye.
See you, fuckers!
The only question that remained unanswered was, had we done enough to get that S+ rank? Oh wow, no. Not by a long shot. By 2 hours and 39 minutes to be exact. Facing up to the realization that I had to reduce my PB by an entire S+ rank with practice runs banned, I instead spent half the day watching through my previous attempt, cringing at how absolutely garbage I was, but also writing down a step-by-step guide that we could follow for our next 2 tries. This way, I could route my way through the seed in the most efficient way possible, learning from the very many mistakes we made on attempt 1 to create a path that blended speed, finesse, an ability to take multiple punches to the face, and most importantly, efficiency. If we could blend all of these and streamline item collection, then maybe, just maybe, we stood a chance. So back we went, entering the world of randomized survival horror. Our first time save comes almost immediately as we can ignore backtracking for the stone arm, and by association the book downstairs in East Wing as well as the jewelry box in B1. We trade a green herb for the 2 additional inventory slots before collecting the club key, the unicorn medallion, and the fuse. Ignoring the items in the basement, which we double back for later, we flash Nemesis to save a grenade this time, open up the RPD's main hall shutters, and grab the jack for the library. Ignoring the battery since the detonator and maiden statue were worthless, we now move immediately up to the West Wing's 3rd floor, where we collect the diamond key and maiden medallion before lowering the bookcases in the library and repathing back down to the West office to complete the medallion trifecta. With the STARS office being undeniable trash, we completely ignore that entire segment of the map, allowing us to hit the main hall and start the G1 boss fight with just 19 minutes and 46 seconds on the clock. With enough resources collected on the way through, with a grenade, 2 knives and a few bullets, G1 was down in just 47 seconds, allowing us to head through the car park and straight up to the roof to collect the square crank and the heart key. With the kennels and more complete and the spade key and the keypad for the evidence locker in our possession, we can now move back through the lower tunnels, collecting the resources and weapon upgrades we'd left earlier and quickly stopping at the bunk bed save room for an inventory tidy up. Despite Nemesis continuing to try to make this run all about him, with our set of master keys, we quickly switch back over to West Wing to raid the evidence lockers all in one go, instead of doing it in 2 runs like before. With Nemesis turning the evidence lockup into some kind of psychotic merry-go-round, we grab the cog and arrive at the clock tower just 40 minutes into the run. Collecting resources as we went, we cut out rooms such as record storage, the stars corridor, and the shower room, as well as most of the locked safes, whose contents weren't equal to the time we'd have to spend gathering them up. With the clock tower puzzle complete, the small time loss of walking past the liquors was one worth saving at the cost of additional knives, health, and saved ammo, but here came a critical mistake. Following completion of the clock tower, my plan that I was literally reading as I played, but I still managed to fuck up, had been to head down through the second floor waiting room where we could collect the shotgun shells, crank the shutter open, and bring in the second electrical component in a quick full sweep through to the taxidermy room. Well, the plan doesn't really work if you forget the red crank. I forgot the crank! Fuck! Precious minutes were wasted having to double back to the save room and then back to the shutters, and whilst 4 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, comparatively to our S+ rank target, we just needlessly wasted 3.3% of our total time available. Evidently, we needed to make some time back, so with a final sweep for resources, the grenade launcher, and other assorted items, we were now pushing through to the orphanage at just under the hour mark. Now, instead of fighting through Dogger's Paradise, I just walked through. If we couldn't outrun the G-Adult, we can make a right past the minivan as the two dogs just remain in place. In the basketball court, we just shoot our way straight out of there and into the bus, and whilst this was a great time save, we have to rely on divine intervention to get us into the orphanage alive. Oh my fuck! Putting the chaos of the RPD behind us, the sewer and the lab felt a lot more linear. We hadn't wasted time retrieving the sewer key from the shower locker, as a second one was located here next to the T-bar, meaning we could move to secure the treatment room and move up towards the rook plug on the east upper waterway straight away. Despite losing multiple health states to the actual top dogging spot in Raccoon City, we spend a few minutes collecting key resources, but again, disaster. A costly miscalculation of our inventory space forces me to make an unwanted diversion back to the item box under the RPD statue to make room for the rook plug, as well as forcing us to double back for key resources we missed. Now, with the rook-shaped butt plug in hand, we complete the circle around the sewers, arriving back at the alien breeding ground to make the inventory drop-off that we'd originally planned so we can collect the queen and king plugs. Thankfully, avoiding any poisonings this time, despite an improved G2 boss fight, we missed the one cycle, with the container slipping past Birkin by mere frames. The additional health items needed weren't ideal, but we'd lost more of what was our most precious resource: time. It all now rested on the lab. One quick inventory reorganization later, we clear out the cafe with a grenade, collect the upgraded wristband and assorted weaponry upgrades. With 2 hours not lost off the sum of best now that we don't have to solve Pythagoras' theorem, we clear B2, repower the lab, cool the liquid, and collect weapons and resources using the server room's item box. With our sustainable garden renovations complete, another wristband upgrade collected, and the antivirus in pocket, it was now time to face G3. With the grenades AoE killing the zombies around us, we instead opt for the combination of the flamethrower and MQ-11, which felt quicker than our previous encounter. Making up for some absolute toilet water movement in the exit duct, G4 was flawless, but G5 still felt uncharacteristically close. Despite the tense ending, Attempt 2 avoids a DNF and ends with another confirmed time on the board, but the question again was, had we reduced our PB enough to make a difference?
No.
An A rank, presumably for "Are you fucking kidding me?" I guess sometimes the difference between success and failure can be as small as 4 minutes and 48 seconds. What was even more annoying was that was more or less the time I'd wasted doubling back to get the red crank in RPD 2. As Krauser would say, it was a sloppy attempt, meaning this entire challenge now rested on our third and final attempt. The final attempt demanded nothing but perfection, but here, in our moment of need, we were delivering nothing but mediocre dog shit. What the fuck, you cheating piece of shit! Probably the worst start so far by a mile, but with a shot of copium concentrate slammed in the restroom, Nemesis kindly holds the door open for us like the gentleman he was as we abandon the contents of the filing cupboard in our attempts to claw back some time. With time-saving crits on the dogs on the west wing, we were able to pull the bookcase over in a single move before collecting the line medallion and defeating G1 in what was probably our best time yet. A good pace through the kennels had us arriving back in RPD2 with all the keys at just 28 minutes on the clock. Back in West Wing and with the large cog in hand, things were looking good, but this was where things were all about to change. Oh my god, this is so bad. Oh my god, I'm so trash. Oh, fuck Christ. And this guy as well, do I ever get a break? Please! Bro! Despite our streamlined pathing saving considerable time, skipping the line statue completely and remembering the red crank, it felt like we'd just thrown these savings away. With Nemesis stuck on Iron's masturbating chair, we slipped downstairs to grab the grenade launcher, but with the margin of failure sitting at just under 5 minutes, there was an overwhelming feeling that we may have already thrown this run. One thing was certain, we couldn't afford any more mistakes. High pressure dodge incoming. Nailed it. Bro, unbelievable. This is unbelievable. The guy won't get out of the door. Bro, please. Oh my god. Nice. Escaping the cursed RPD, this now all rested on what gains we could make in the sewers and the lab. Collecting the resources in the control room without fighting the zombies this time was a good start, and by stripping our inventory downstairs to its bare bones, the plan was to take a risk, bringing less healing items in the hope that we could avoid that second unnecessary trip to the item box. Collecting all 3 chest plugs in just a single item box run gave us a 4 to 5 minute time save, and whilst the previous G2 fights had been terrible, this one was somehow even worse. Ow! Perhaps with this being the first speedrun style run I've ever attempted, the pressure was getting to me. I'd burned through all of my heals, messed up the damage for the one cycle, and as we rushed to pull the container across, I'd somehow thrown all of my flash grenades, meaning we had nothing to keep G2 in place. Grenades did nothing, and as G2 ran towards me with murderous intent reflected in his massive eyeball, all we could do was accept the sweet embrace of death. Truly one of the moments of all time, but this cinematic ending had cost us. Comparably to the other 2 attempts, our G2 fight ranked bottom of the barrel, meaning we headed into Nest just over 10 minutes ahead of attempt 2's pace. Now, our biggest time save here was again inventory and item management. By stripping back our inventory similar to the way we did in the sewers, item pickup in the restaurant wing was maximized and removed the need to route back again for leftover items later. In the garden center, we quickly powered on B2, dropped off resources and cooled the liquid without any costly liquor damage this time, putting us face to face with G3 moments later. A fairly average start to G3 leads to a very decent ending to G3, quicker than our previous attempts, and even with an arse-puckering body block at the door by Nemesis, we conduct the most rapid of inventory management pre-G4. Hitting every grenade to avoid G4's lengthy climb up the wall, this fight felt good, but was it good enough? As G5 was receiving the final bullets of the final run, I wasn't feeling as confident as I thought I would. Still silently raging at the mistakes that we'd made, it was all out of our hands now. As we walked off into the distance, our fate had already been decided. Whilst there may have been zero hope for this run, we'd made it, and with just 2 minutes to spare. Escaping the horrors of the randomizer, borderline racist anime children, and multiple mentally unwell stalkers, we could finally put our very short STARS career behind us and move on with our life as we looked ahead to our next challenge.
Randomiser.